step up and deliver the superior experience that today's consumers have come to expect. DealerTrack DMS gives you the tools to improve workflow efficiency, reduce in-dealership time, and put the focus on your customers so your sales team and your entire dealership shine.
Welcome to Daily Drive for Thursday, August 21st, 2025. I'm Jake Neer in Detroit, in for Kellen Walker, who's on assignment. Today on the show, the U.S. and EU reach a deal that could cut auto tariffs. Nissan plans a product blitz that would reincarnate the Xterra. And Tesla's three-row Model Y might not make it to the U.S. Plus, Slate Auto's head of design, Tisha Johnson, joins the show to talk about the low-cost EV pickup that can be customized and converted to an SUV.
We have a saying at Slate, we built it, you make it. That is absolutely what our DNA is.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. The U.S. and European Union are opening the door to cut auto tariffs and put discounts in place for steel and aluminum. The new plan represents a step forward from a preliminary trade deal announced a month ago. It includes specific benchmarks for the EU to secure its promised sectoral tariff discounts on cars, pharmaceuticals, and semiconductors, as well as new commitments for addressing the bloc's digital services regulations. A senior Trump administration official told reporters that discounted 15% tariffs on European auto imports could be in place within weeks. Nissan plans to deliver 20 new and updated models to the U.S. and Canada by spring 2027. At its national dealer meeting Wednesday in Las Vegas, the Japanese automaker teased all kinds of new sheet metal, including new generations of the Rogue crossover, Sentra sedan, and Infiniti Q50 sedan. Nissan also disclosed plans for a pair of midsize utility vehicles, including a reincarnation of its Xterra SUV coming in 2028. And Tesla CEO Elon Musk says the company's new 6-seat Model Y variant might never enter production in the United States. He says that's due to the rise of self-driving vehicles. Tesla launched the Model Y L in China this week. The company will build the three-row model at Tesla's Shanghai factory, and it's priced at around $47,000. In a response to a post from a user on his social media site X, Musk wrote, quote, "This variant of the Model Y doesn't start production in the U.S. until the end of next year, might not ever, given the advent of self-driving in America." Musk did not elaborate on how the rise of autonomous driving would negate the need for a 6-seater vehicle. Tesla did not immediately respond to a request for comment. And those are today's headlines. You can find more details on all of those stories at autonews.com. If you've been listening to the show the last couple days, you know that our own John Irwin is a busy man covering trade policy and the supply chain for us at Automotive News. He's here now to talk more about this deal between the U.S. and the EU. John, welcome back yet again to Daily Drive.
Glad to be back.
So as I mentioned earlier in the show, the U.S. and the EU announced a trade agreement last month. So what's significant about this new development that we're talking about today?
Yeah, it basically lays out in more detail what the U.S. and EU agreed to a few weeks ago when they initially reached that preliminary agreement. If you think back a few weeks, essentially the U.S. and EU said, okay, we've reached this framework of a deal. Part of it includes lowering auto tariffs to 15%, which matches kind of the overall tariff rate for most imports from the EU. But that hasn't actually happened since then. Automakers have been sort of waiting on when that 15% tariff rate will go into effect. Today, they got at least an answer that we don't know an exact date yet, but it should be coming soon. Basically, the U.S. saying that it'll lower the 15% auto tariff on EU vehicles and parts once the EU introduces legislation that'll lower or eliminate tariffs on U.S. industrial goods and make some progress on market access for U.S. agricultural goods and that sort of thing. One of the key things is that the U.S. is saying that they'll lower the 15% tariff rate once the legislation is introduced. Doesn't have to actually pass, doesn't have to be implemented, anything like that. Just has to be introduced in Brussels. And EU has signaled that might happen pretty quickly. They're hoping to introduce legislation maybe by the end of the month, in which case the US says that whatever month that legislation is introduced, they'll retroactively lower the auto tariff rate to 15% for that month. So if that legislation is introduced before the end of the month, the US will lower the auto tariff rate retroactively to August 1st. In addition to that, there are a couple other developments. They're pretty vague at the moment, but could signal something down the line. Steel and aluminum, the U.S. has said for a while that their 50% steel and aluminum tariffs are pretty much set in stone. But as part of this framework that they laid out today, the U.S. is basically saying that they're open to discussing the possibility of quotas, which is the first time that that's come up in steel and aluminum talks. It's notable just in the sense that it's the first time that the Trump administration sort of budged a little bit on steel and aluminum. Again, we'll see what happens. It's not a commitment to actually implement quotas. It's basically an agreement to look into it, but it's notable in that sense at least. And then the U.S. and EU have also talked about the commitment to, again, look into the possibility of regulatory alignment. That's something that automakers have been looking for a long time, for years. And it's something that the U.S. and EU are at least signaling here that they're going to look into, and that could have wide-ranging impacts. But again, it's pretty vague at the moment. It's just a couple of sentences in this 3.5-page document. There's a lot to be worked out, but we got a lot more details today about what this trade agreement might actually look like once it all comes together.
Right. So as you said, progress. And I think maybe when the preliminary agreement came out without a whole lot of details, there maybe were people out there with some questions like, what direction does this go from here? Will they make progress? Will it go in maybe the other direction? So I guess this does send a signal that they're going in the right direction. Is that a fair statement?
I think that's fair to say. Yeah, I guess there was a little bit of concern from automakers, like, okay, when is this actually going to take effect? And, this is a sign that, okay, the ball is rolling a little bit here. We'll see when a lot of this stuff takes effect, what the details are. There's still a lot of details to be sorted out, some of which are going to take months or maybe even years. But at least on the tariff front, it looks like there's a little bit of a sign that this 15% tariff rate is potentially coming in the next couple of weeks. But we'll see. And obviously, we're going to be looking out for Japan and South Korea too. That's a similar rate that they agreed to, 15%. That's, again, that 15% auto tariff rate hasn't been implemented yet. We'll see if the U.S. might use auto tariffs in a similar way in their negotiations with Japan and South Korea, but that's still to be seen.
And what do you think this signals for all of those other countries? Obviously, there's a lot of plates spinning here when it comes to trade all over the world and how the U.S. is going to handle these relationships going forward. Do you have a sense of sort of what this says to other countries about what the U.S. approach is here, how the Trump administration is handling these?
I think if it wasn't clear before, I think it's extra clear now that the Trump administration views auto tariffs as one of its big bargaining chips. We've seen, again, this EU trade example is, a kind of a prime example of that, where they're kind of dangling this, okay, you want, 15% auto tariffs, but first we're going to make sure that we get, what we want when it comes to industrial goods. I would expect that maybe to be the case with Japan and South Korea as well. Again, it remains to be seen, but I'd imagine auto tariffs, again, will be front and center with Canada and Mexico, both in the short term, as they talk about trade deals just in the short term, but also with the USMCA negotiations looming. I'd imagine auto tariffs will be front and center, and I'd imagine the Trump administration won't be afraid to use auto tariffs as a bargaining chip, just because it's front of mind for all these companies, because the auto sector is crucial to the economies for a lot of these countries that we're talking with right now. So I think that's pretty clear at the moment, but yeah, we'll have to see what the details are once those come out with the other negotiations.
All right, John. Well, we'll try to give you the day off tomorrow here, at least for daily drives purposes, and so that you can keep up on everything going on in the world. Thanks again, John, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, we'll hear from the head of design for Slate, a Jeff Bezos-backed EV startup that's getting a lot of buzz lately. That's next on Daily Drive.
Consumers have high expectations of the car buying experience. 88% of consumers said their experience matters as much as the company's products or services. And with low inventory, high prices, and high interest rates, You have the opportunity to step up and deliver a positive buying experience that helps consumers overcome their frustrations and feel good about their purchase decisions. Your DMS is a data powerhouse and must be well integrated across your dealership. DealerTrack DMS is proven to seamlessly connect your operations and reduce manual data entry by pre-filling forms so consumers spend less time at your dealership. DealerTrack DMS is also key to helping you track, optimize, and improve the performance of your entire team. With actionable data insights from streamlined reports and metrics, you can find new opportunities for growth and unlock important process and profitability improvements. Because DealerTrack is flexible and easy to use, your team spends less time rekeying data and memorizing codes and more time delivering the next level customer experience your dealership prides itself on. Bottom line, DealerTrack DMS improves workflow efficiency and puts the focus on your customers so your sales team and your entire dealership shine. See how you can unlock better experiences and improve your entire operation with DealerTrack DMS.
Daily Drive listeners like you have access to the lowest price for Automotive News Congress 2025 on September 11th.
The event is where the industry's biggest players tackle its toughest challenges. Congress attendees don't just follow the industry, they lead it.
This year's featured speakers include Hyundai Motor Group Executive Chair Yu-Sung Chung, Asbury Automotive CEO David Holt, and General Motors CEO Mary Barra.
We are investing in America. We're creating jobs. That's creating IP in this country. And I think, the United States needs to lead in key technologies.
Join us to gain the insights and connections needed to steer your business through massive change.
To get the lowest price for the event, go to autonews.com/events, select Auto News Congress, and type in the discount code DAILYDRIVE. That's one word, all caps, Daily Drive. And we'll see you on September 11th in Detroit. Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Jake Neer. Slate Auto has been growing quietly just up the road from here in Detroit, but now the EV startup is out of stealth mode and officials are laying bold plans to disrupt the market. As part of that push, Slate showed off its minimalistic electric pickup in California last week as part of Monterey Car Week. Our own Lawrence Iliff spoke with Slate head of design Tisha Johnson at the event. Here's a piece of their conversation.
So what's kind of the history from your point? What's your history? Like, when did you start and when did you start deciding what it was going to look like?
Okay, great question. So I joined Slate in December of 2022, and there were about 15 or 16 people. I was the first designer to join, and that has been an incredible honor. So the first things that we needed to do was form a team of designers who have different types of capabilities and really start to look at what the proportions of the vehicle needed to be. We had a very, very clear vision before I jumped in regarding the fact that this car was going to be really so different, because it absolutely had to be both really, really low cost and really, really something people would want, something people would feel truly proud of. That's actually why I signed on as a designer, because so often one or the other of those would get left behind. But here it was an opportunity to bring something to more people and something that they would feel really proud of. So we, as a team, began first to look at what the proportions would be. And what we wanted to do was make sure that it signaled to people. People understood that this is absolutely a capable vehicle. It's got plenty of utility, and it meets some of those really important day-to-day uses, such as easily getting in and out of the car, the vehicle, easily loading things into the back of the truck. So we have a really nice low entry on the truck itself, and you can get 4x8 sheet back there, some rock sheet or whatever you need, plywood, and tons of capacity. At the same time, the vehicle architecture really speaks to people on a level of true simplicity. We wanted to make sure that it wasn't really, there was nothing really frivolous here. So that's where we started from.
We see so many EVs that are, sculpted for aerodynamics, and sometimes those bring like some really weird shapes. Obviously the Mercedes EQS wasn't very popular. They're kind of saying, well, it was very aerodynamic, but we're not sure now. Maybe we'll go back to a more classic look. And I don't know how you feel about the Ioniq 6. I like it. I think it's cool. But it's funky and it's not selling great, so that's a different story. But you don't have to comment on those. But it doesn't look like a classic EV aerodynamic bar of soap.
Well said, and thank you. I take that as a compliment, and the team thanks you for those very kind words. In fact, that was something else that was quite intentional from the beginning. We knew that this is a capable vehicle that can convert from a truck into an SUV, whatever people want, a la carte. And our mission was to really deliver that in something that would be much more timeless, something that could really, you could look at it and feel a sense of familiarity. And at the same time, something that is completely relevant right now, today. And of course, casting the stone into the future, something that would hold up. So there we said, all right, let's deliver on that. The vehicle is first and foremost something that is incredibly useful, something that we wanted people to love. And it happens to be an EV.
Okay, so go ahead and tell me a little bit about your background.
Oh, sure. Thank you for asking. So my background, I've been in the auto industry since 1999 as a car designer. I went to Art Center College of Design and knew by the time I started that when I graduated, I wanted to be really in the automotive industry, designing cars. I have been designing cars since at least the 5th grade, as our family story goes. My parents remind me often about the images that I was creating as a child, and it was all of the classic car design stuff. So I might design one day on paper a van for my dad, who was a surfer, making sure that he could throw his surfboards in there and have all of the utility. I even had the classic call outs that we do professionally, noting what some of the details are of the vehicle. So I have had a passion around this since I was a child. And, there's nothing more satisfying than as an adult to be able to do something that I've loved endlessly for as long as I can remember. But now, of course, there's real purpose-driven work here. I really have wanted to, for such a long time, deliver a vehicle that people can afford, that they would really want to own. And in fact, my senior thesis at Art Center was centered around that idea.
Now, when when we think about this, obviously there's a lot of nostalgia here. I had the Isuzu pickup, right? Yeah. Which Chevy also sold as the LUV, and the Isuzu version was the PUP.
Yeah, I had it too.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
Great,
I did.
Great. I loved mine.
Oh,
man,
so
that was
great.
Such a good car.
Such a good car.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, I think there's a certain kind of heartache that we have around this void, this small pickup that just left the market. And we can see over time that the people have been asking for it to come back.
It was literally my first new car because it was cheap. It was like, what's the cheapest thing on the lot?
Yeah.
I think it was $7,500 at that time. Obviously, that was a long time ago. Okay, so you want the nostalgia, but I never understand this because I'm not well versed in it. But how do you get nostalgia and modernity together? Is it like the basic shape is nostalgic and the details are modern, or it's not that simple?
That might be it. that might be the what it is. But what we did was, as a team, we backed up and we said, we have to go after both. We have to have something that is recognizable to people, as I said earlier, something that is familiar. But we're a new car brand, so what are we going to draw on? It's not like we have, some heritage to look back on. But we do know that trucks in the landscape across time have certain attributes that people understand, they recognize, that they consider desirable, and they know this means, a really capable truck in our minds. And so those are the proportional things that we went after. And at the same time, in fact, yes, we have certain details here, very simple, but I think of them as just really good industrial design. And so I think that combination of functionality, that is wrapped around a proportion that you recognize, that might be why it's, why people are referring to it in the way that you just did.
I was talking about this with somebody the other day in the car industry in Detroit, and they're like, you know what? It occurred to me that the Slate pickup would be like a really good fleet vehicle. I mean, obviously you guys have talked about that, but his comment was, I think it's primarily a fleet vehicle. But more than that, it kind of led me to think that this is kind of, in a way, every segment. It's the pickup segment. It's the crossover segment. I guess if you lift it up enough, it's the SUV segment, because we kind of distinguish between crossovers and SUVs, kind of soft rider versus more macho. Traditionally, they were body on frame. We don't do that anymore with electric cars, really, kind of, sort of. And then, those are kind of all the basic shapes, right? So, obviously it's not a sports car. You're not going for that. But
we do have the fastback SUV.
But when you were thinking about that, how do I fit? Obviously it's important that you create a nostalgic pickup and that it converts to a crossover. What did you think about like a fleet vehicle? Like, how many things can we make this do?
Well, we have a saying at Slate, we built it, you make it. That is absolutely what our DNA is. So if you can conceive of it and really good use for it, then we just want to make sure that you're able to get it there, and we'll help you along the way. So therefore, I always think of the truck as the basis. It is the first part of a system. You might say it snaps together, like Legos or something, but it is really just the beginning of a system that you will be able to put together in whatever combination gets you that use out of it that you want. And for some folks, it's going to be much more of a statement. And for other people, it's going to be much more of a workhorse. So, we should satisfy that bandwidth. And so that's what we're going for.
Slate's head of design, Tisha Johnson, spoke with our own Lawrence Iliff at Monterey Car Week in California. You can hear more of their conversation on this week's bonus episode of Daily Drive, which will be available Sunday morning. That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Jake Neer, in for Kellen Walker. Thanks to our own John Irwin and Urvaksh Karkaria for their reporting for today's podcast. We also had reporting from Kurt Nagel of our sibling publication, Crane's Detroit Business. You can get the latest news on EV startups, trade negotiations, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. Come back tomorrow for a conversation about how the new budget bill could affect dealership F&I.
I think whether it's CAFE or whether it's EV manufacturers and even retailers, they need to be looking down the road and saying, with the next president, will these be reestablish or reinstitute it.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoyed the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.